Good evening, this is Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. There's a big breaking story that is coming up. All of us are thinking that we have won this war on Covid-19. It's not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. While the West has already started giving booster shots, particularly to elderly citizens, the vulnerable, etc., here in India, we have a peculiar situation because unused vaccines are going to waste. More than 25 crores of unused vaccines are lying either with state governments or with private hospitals. Some states have even written to the centre saying, do not give us additional vaccines, we have enough. So the question that's top of mind, is India thinking of a third dose, a booster dose, some kind of additional dose to the elderly, the vulnerable, frontline and healthcare workers? We have some breaking news, some big breaking news on that front coming up right here at the top of Tacks. It's a CNN News 18 exclusive. Top government sources say that the centre is likely to form a policy on the administration of a third dose. There's going to be a key meeting that will discuss and deliberate on the policy framework that is scheduled for early next week. An expert group has been working on formulating a policy document. The recommendation we're given to understand for a third dose could first come in the form of an additional dose and not a booster dose. Now, what does that mean in layman terms? That means that priority will be given to those people who are immunocompromised, who have comorbidities of some form, not necessarily just age as a factor, not necessarily other factors, but those who are immunocompromised may be given an additional shot. Runjun is breaking that story for us right here at the top of Tacks. Runjun, what more details do we have and what is the thinking behind this additional dosage? Because world over, particularly if you look at the Western countries, they're all going for booster shots for the elderly to start with, but that's not the path that India would like to go down on.
Likely, yes, Zaka. In fact, a key meeting is scheduled for next week when an expert panel, in fact, is going to put a policy framework as far as the third dose is concerned. Like you pointed out, Zaka, this may not be a booster dose per se, but this could be an additional dose to start with for those whose immunity is compromised with illnesses such as cancer, for example. For these people, a two-dose vaccination regime is not all the time sufficient. So, of course, this expert panel is going to deliberate on what these people who are comorbid, what illnesses could be included in this policy framework as far as the third shot of the vaccine is concerned. Also, on the booster dose, that is something that is going to be deliberated next week. These recommendations, once formed by the expert panel, of course, is going to be presented to the government, and of course, the government could take a call on a third dose. Remember, many countries, Zaka, like you pointed out, have already started administering a booster dose to their population. But what experts, even a WHO panel, for example, in October had pointed out is that it would rather be wise to first vaccinate those with a third shot whose immunity is compromised because of comorbidities or underlying health conditions. That is the thinking within the panel, the expert panel, which is going to be deliberated on a third dose early next week. Zaka.
And very quickly, what is the thinking behind, giving an additional dose to immunocompromised individuals? Because like I said, world over, if you were to look at the example of other countries, US, UK and other countries, they are going en masse vaccination for senior citizens to start with as a booster shot. Whereas in India, the thinking is different. So I'm just trying to understand what's the rationale, what's the thinking?
Zaka, what experts point out is to the fact that many people who are immunocompromised, whose immunity is compromised because of underlying health conditions, cancer, for example, studies have shown that a two-dose vaccination regime, which is a standard vaccination regime, does not work as well, does not generate as potent immune response as it would in healthy population. And therefore, the expert panel believes that it would be wise for first to protect those people who are still vulnerable, and then move on to healthy people who have not received their dose, say in 7 months or 8 months. That's of course for the experts to decide on what is a good time. The policy framework of course is going to be decided, but that of course is the thinking within the expert panel. The meeting scheduled for next week, Zaka.
All right, Runjan, we'll leave it at that. That big breaking story there, Runjan Sharma reporting for us here right at the top of Dastak. So just to quickly recap, what is the thinking within the government right now? The third dose action plan. Government sources have told CNN News 18 the key meet on the policy framework is likely early next week. The expert group is working to formulate a policy for a third dose for individuals who are in absolute need of a third dose. The initial clearing is given as a third dose instead of a booster shot. Remember, in the West, in the US, in the UK, they're calling it a booster shot. They've already started for senior citizens, whereas in India, it's going to be called an additional dose. Immunocompromised individuals, irrespective of their age, but underlying conditions, comorbidities, that's going to be the critical factor in deciding who will be given priority for this additional dose or this third dose. And I want to bring you up to speed also with the rate of unused vaccines that are lying with both private hospitals as well as with state governments. Just over the last week or so, on the 12th of November, there were a little over 18 crore unused vaccines that were lying with state governments or private hospitals. You can see that's been steadily increasing from 18 crore. 3 days later, it became 20 crores. Slight dip on the 16th of November to 19.5. Then it's been on the uptick again. So 22.5 crore vaccines is what is lying with the states as of the 18th of November. So that is a substantial chunk of unused vaccines that's lying right now with various state governments. So let's try and ask that to different experts who are joining us on the talking point this evening. Zafar Islam is Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament of the BJP. Shama Mohammed, Doctor, is a spokesperson of the Congress Party. Dr. Nandakumar Jairam is former CEO and chairman of the GMD at Columbia Asia Hospitals. And Dr. Ishwar Gilada is infectious diseases expert and Secretary General of the Organized Medicine Academic Guild. Zafar, why would we have vaccines and 22.5 crore with just state governments and another few crores with private hospitals? So 25 crore vaccines lying unutilized. Why would we let that go to waste? Why can't the government already start thinking of a booster shot, much like Western countries are doing?
Zaka, first of all, those opposition leaders who were criticizing the government of India has not been able to produce enough vaccine for the population of this great country, at least they will not be able to speak anything of that sort, because what the Honorable Prime Minister had indicated, something is now coming true, that the production is, we have enough production in India, and simultaneously also vaccination drive is going in a full swing. Even yesterday or today, more than 75 lakh people have been vaccinated. So, of course, as you rightly pointed out that and your colleagues, that there is a discussion within the government, and it's not the government who is going to take a decision. It is a decision which will be taken based on the guidance, and this suggestion will be made by the expert committee led by ICMR, because they will deliberate first whether to vaccinate the rest of the people who needs to be vaccinated, whether it's a age group of 25 to 44 or 60 to beyond 60 years, or any age group which needs to be vaccinated, and those who have not been vaccinated, they need to be prioritized, or the third dose or the booster shot should be given to people who needs a third dose, which is their immunity level is low, they have a comorbidity, and they, irrespective of their age, they should be prioritized. I think this will be deliberated not at the government level. As I said, this will be deliberated by the experts, because this
fair
is
enough.
something to do
That's
with
a point well taken. It's a decision
medical
that,
science, and
that
the
doctors
scientists and the experts
and not,
and the doctors,
policy makers. That's a point well taken. But here's the catch. One second. Here's the catch, and I want to ask Dr. Shama Mohammed this. There are 25 crore vaccines that are going unutilized. In fact, even yesterday, last night, Adar Poonawalla tweeted saying, please come forth. Whoever has not taken their second dose, please come forth and take your second dose, because otherwise this will go to waste. Now, the point is, would you rather it go to waste or these unutilized vaccines be used? I mean, if there are people, a large mass of people out there who are willing to pay for an additional dose, for a third dose, then why don't you allow them to pay and get access to that vaccine rather than allowing it to go waste? Shama Mohammed.
Zaka, it is not on me. You're asking me, why don't you allow? Who am I in this? It's the government of India's policy. See, there are a couple of things, a couple of points. One, the total number of fully vaccinated people are around 38 crores. 114 crores have got single doses. So there have been 51 lakh vaccinations given per day. And we have 27% of our population which are fully vaccinated. That's what we need to understand. Why are these vaccinations going waste when only 27% of our population are fully vaccinated? So what we need to do, I do feel, is to cut down the period. We are now having 84 days from the first vaccine to the second. Why not make it 6 to 8 weeks like the rest of the countries around the world? Yeah. Reduce the number of days so that we can get people quickly vaccinated. That is what we need to do. So if with this way we go, by December we'll only have 35% of our population fully vaccinated. We won't have all of the adult population. How they have spelled it out earlier on, Mr. Modi and the Bharatiya Janata Party, that they will vaccinate each and every adult. So what we need to do, and the government of India, I mean, there is no tutu meme here. I do not want to do that. It's about vaccinating our people, and if the government can do it, well and good. But what we need to do right now is reduce the gap. You know, why?
Okay.
Before, yes, we were short of vaccines.
Let's ask Zafar to respond to that. I mean, at least now can we consider reducing the gap? I mean, the gap was increased at a time when there was a serious shortage of vaccines. Our supply chains were not able to keep pace with the requirement at that time. But now surely we can reduce the gap. And if you reduce the gap, then maybe you'll get more people to take the second shot.
Zaka, it is entirely untrue that because of the shortage of vaccine, at that point in time, the number of days between the first dose and second dose had been increased. It is the recommendation of the expert committee. Let the expert committee recommend, and government has no hesitation in accepting the recommendation because it is something to do with the medical sciences. Okay. And if they recommend something which is driven by the understanding of they have the expert committee can comprehend, and they can recommend, of course government will consider it. But right now the focus, as you have shown on your screen, all the experts, all the doctors are only requesting the people of this great country to get vaccinated. Those who have not been vaccinated or only first dose they have taken and are now eligible for second dose, they must take the second dose.
All right.
We are not entitled to reducing the date. It is only the expert committee which has to recommend.
Okay, let me ask Dr.
The responsibility of the government to produce enough number of vaccine.
Yeah.
Doses which we have successfully been able to deliver
right now,
and demonstrate that what we had
promised. There is enough of a supply of vaccines. But let me ask Dr. Jairam. One second, Zafar, one second, please, Zafar. Let me ask Dr. Jairam, what is your anecdotal sort of experience when it comes to the, let's say, last 3 weeks to a month of these vaccines? We're given to understand, even in private hospitals, a lot of vaccines are going to waste because people are not coming forth. Either many have already got their second dose, or the ones who are yet to take their second dose for some reason are not coming forth to take that second dose. What is your anecdotal experience in the chain of hospitals that you're acquainted with? What is the case in the last month or so?
Definitely, Zach, and thank you for having me this evening. There has been a reduction in the number of people coming forward to take their vaccination. I relate this to not just hesitancy, but a lethargy. When the second wave was at its peak, everybody was running helter-skelter trying to get vaccinated, and that continued until there was an ebb in the number of cases. Now, just as you find other aspects of COVID protection being a little, laggard, the same kind of attitude has come up with people who have taken the first dose for their second dose, and this occasional group that has not been vaccinated at all. So that is precisely where we are. And I'd say that you are safe when everybody else is safe. So I think the priority that lies before us is to really push that segment of people back into the vaccination group and ensure that we quickly cover the second vaccine for the population, which, as has been clearly stated by my colleague, is going to be at a very small percentage otherwise. And so I would not relate this to anything other than a laggard attitude of people.
I want to ask Dr. Gilada, how then do you change that? I mean, obviously, since the start of COVID, there's been so many changes in human behavior itself. I mean, none of us were used to a lockdown, but we behaviorally changed to get used to it, get our lives around to the fact that most establishments were closed. How do you make that behavioral change? And I think Dr. Jairam is 100% right. I think a sense of lethargy has crept in, not just in the question of vaccinations, but also in COVID-appropriate behavior. You go out into, markets and malls and shopping places and so on, you don't see COVID-appropriate behavior. And the reason why people are taking this a little, in a complacent fashion is perhaps because the cases have come down. How do you make that behavioral change again? That many people, I think the government's own estimate is over 10 crore people have not taken their second dose. How do you get them to come out and take the second dose?
Zaka, since beginning we have been seeing in the pandemic, science and logic, they are the least respected. Everything else works. Secondly, if you talk about the COVID appropriate behavior, if you see that India is a hero worshipping country, whether they are political leader, religious leader, film leader, sports leader. If you talk about COVID appropriate behavior, you look at any political gathering, any political parties, any public gatherings, any big leaders, they are not using masks. So if our heroes are not using masks, we can't expect general people will follow them, and they will follow and they will not use the mask. Secondly, there is a hesitancy, which is the absolute hesitancy. They will not take the vaccine. There are some religious groups which are not taking vaccine. There are tribal groups who are not taking vaccine. But there is a relative hesitancy. When the pandemic is on waning side, then people think that chalta hai attitude. If I take vaccine after some time, nothing would happen. I have taken already one dose. And lastly, this gap of 12 to 16 weeks, it is nowhere in the world. India decided to do that. It was again not a logic. It was somebody just refuted that point, but it was supply chain mechanism which decided them to take a decision of 12 to 16 weeks. But now when the supply is there and supply is going to be stale, then use it. And most important thing is, since beginning, the private doctors, nursing homes, they have not been utilized for the vaccination program. All the private hospitals, they are fed by nursing homes and doctors. So just a mechanism here, those feeders can be used as users. If you allow private doctors and nursing homes to vaccinate, then all private hospitals can use them. Okay. And lastly, we talk about vaccine Maitri program for international sector. Yeah. We can do the same thing here in domestic sector. What we can do is we can exchange vaccine between public sector and private sector. Where they have a longer expiry vaccine, they can exchange with the private sector. So vaccine to vaccine, nothing would expire.
No, but what I'm curious about is, how do you get those people who have taken the first dose but are not coming out for some reason to come out and take the second dose, Dr. Shama Mohammed? I mean, what can government do? Government is even running something called a Har Ghar Dastak, which means the vaccine will come to you. You don't have to go to the vaccine. And yet, there are still a substantial number of people who have not taken their second dose. I mean, behavioral change can't be imposed top-down. It has to come bottom-up.
See, we have also run programs of vaccination, national policies like polio vaccination. It's up to how the government functions. Now, let me tell you, one of the most important component in giving the vaccine drive are the ASHA workers. Let me tell you that. I've seen them work in Kerala and everything. But you have to understand, these ASHA workers get their salary after 3 months. I don't know why the government of India treat them like that. They should give them their salary if you have to motivate them. They are a very important component in getting people vaccinated in cities as well as in villages. That's number one. And also very important, I think Zafar just mentioned that, there was no shortage of vaccines. Zafar, you forgot, till the end of March, we were exporting vaccines. We had a terrible April and May where people died due to lack of oxygen. It was a terrible attack on us. I think you have got a short memory. And let's all remember that it was Mr. Rahul Gandhi who shot off a letter which clearly said that we should look into other vaccines, we should stop the export of these vaccines, we should let states decide about the adult population above 18 should be given immediate vaccines, so and give more funds to vaccine makers. So let's understand that, you know, there were a lot of problems initially, and I still urge that one has to reduce the gap. What happens is, even I have people help at my home, and they say, madam, 3 mahine ke baad ye kya hai? So it is that if you do it within 6 to 8 people, you know, you also get the vaccine certificate fast. People, you know, you have to understand there's a lethargy from the time of vaccination, and then 3 months later there are time people forget about it. See, you and me might not.
I think
that's very important to reduce. We have
the doctors have been making that.
We have the vaccines now, and Zaka, important is.
No, once again, I think that's the one thing that's coming out of this discussion, that the gap can be reduced. The gap was, for whatever reason, increased. You know, we can disagree on it. I think it was supply chain constraints that increased the gap, but you can say it was the expert panel that decided. But surely the gap can be now reduced rather than having 25 crore vaccines go waste. Zafar.
Well, Zaka, as I said earlier, that we are not averse to taking such call. The government of India has always stated that since it is to do with health, it is to do with the medical science, and only the experts who have the expertise and has the ability to guide the government, that the committee has been formed. That committee can take a call, and of course, it can be implemented, the duration can be reduced. But what is more important, again I am emphasizing, Zaka, the government's ability to be judged whether the government can make available the vaccination dose. And that is something which government has been able to demonstrate, and it is exemplary. The world is recognizing India's talent, India's leadership, India's scientists'
No,
ability.
I don't agree with you, Zafar.
Everywhere, wherever I go, in the different part of the world, they always praise the Indian government and the scientists and Indian medical fraternity for having what delivered that. And I must compliment everyone. Opposition, what Sama Muhammad is saying, in March and April, of course, March and April, in this country, you just go back all the article at that point in time, people were saying that by 2024 India will not have vaccine. Here we have a case where in the month of December we will have 60
you
crore
are
of production.
supposed to vaccinate every adult by December.
So we have enough number of vaccine doses.
I don't want to get into this, Tutu Meme. All I'll say is, you know, it is good that we have got to 100 crores plus. That was the aim, and we have got there. But I think this waste of vaccines, or allowing them to go waste, is almost like a criminal act. We should try and find as many ways as possible to try and reduce this criminal waste of vaccines, which, by the way, they have a finite sort of shelf life, 6 months or 8 months. If you don't consume them within that period, then it's over. It's as good as worthless. So let's find creative ways, and I agree that one of the ways is to try and reduce the gap from the current 3 months that it is, reduce it down to about 8 to 12 weeks, and possibly, or 6 to 8 weeks, and possibly that will lead to a greater uptick in the consumption and the usage of these vaccines. Meanwhile, shifting focus to some of the other stories, the rain havoc continues in the southern part of the country. Heavy rains in Tirupati have led to severe waterlogging in low-lying areas. You can see those pictures on the left-hand side. Cars being washed away. A rain alert has been issued for the next 24 hours. Ghat roads leading to the Tirumala temple have also been shut. A public holiday has been declared tomorrow in the whole of Chittoor district. Meanwhile, a government school has collapsed because of heavy rains in Kadalur in Tamil Nadu. Those are the pictures on the right-hand side of your screen. The district administration there has already announced a holiday for schools and colleges in the state. Swastika is joining us with more details. Just how bad is the rain situation now in coastal Andhra Pradesh?
Well, the southern parts of Andhra Pradesh, that is the areas adjoining Tamil Nadu, Tirupati, Kadapa, Nellore, these are the areas where a red alert has been issued. Situation is particularly grim in Tirupati, as evident on those visuals playing out on the screens right now. Heavy rainfall alert is in place for the next 24 hours. All educational institutions, public offices have been shut in Chittoor district, and even those devotees who are visiting the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, they have also been put on hold because the temple is most likely to remain shut tomorrow as well because of the rain situation. This is because of the southwest depression that is looming over the Bay of Bengal, and Met Department has issued an alert for the next 24 hours saying that the situation could remain grim. NDRF teams and SDRF teams have been deployed on the ground. For now, there have been no exceptional casualties as such, but there have been incidents of wall collapse, tree felling, which is likely to lead to casualty according to the officials.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Swastika Das there reporting for us from Hyderabad. We'll keep a close eye out on this low-lying depression, which is expected to make landfall sometime in the early hours between Chennai and the border of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. That's a wrap. I'll catch you again tomorrow night, same time at 9 p.m. with Tacks. Thank you for your time.